And for an early look at what we can expect now from our local market, Evan Lucas from IG joins us from Melbourne. Evan, good morning. The US earnings season rolling on and Morgan Stanley and Baxter both in focus. What are the tie-overs for us here in Australia?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting sort of morning for us over here in Australia with regards to what's going on in the US, Nigel. I think the way you look at Morgan Stanley is that, again, it gets back to what we've seen out of all of the major US investment banks, and that, again, gets back to Goldman Sachs. We also look at Citi, somewhat at JP Morgan, and then obviously last night with Morgan Stanley, they jumped up 4.4%. They had a really, really good jump in earnings. It's up around about 66% on that net income from this time last year, and their earnings per share was up to 41 cents. Now, the reason I sort of relate that back to here is that Macquarie has spent so much time over the last sort of 10 plus years of getting their foot well and truly inside the US, and it'll be very interesting considering the fact that wealth management and also the trading revenues over there have been basically the theme of earnings season this year for the banks. Will be whether or not they can abstract some of that as well. So watching Macquarie very closely, it is one stock that does have really good US exposure, and also the fact that the US dollar is continuing to trend higher. Last night we saw it again against most of its major peers, particularly Aussie dollar, continue to pop up. So that's one way to look. We're looking today is obviously Macquarie and how that's going to affect it in about 4 weeks' time with its earning. And then moving across to Baxter. Baxter is a really direct competitor to CSL, our largest healthcare provider, and Baxter also had good results last night, but saw its third quarter adjustments up around about $1.19, $1.21 compared to estimates of around about $1.17. So was a good situation. It saw the acquisitions of Gambo really starting to come in on a synergy side. It did suggest that its immunoglobulin sort of divisions was continuing to move ahead despite the fact that it had issues with stage 3 from the FDA. So CSL, another one to watch, good US dollar exposure, and the fact that Baxter had such a good report should mean that when it does start to report in a couple of weeks' time as well, it should have got a bit of a kicker out of the US. So that's what we're looking there, Nigel, and that's why at the moment US earnings season from our stock perspective is quite an interesting time ahead.
Let's talk oil now. We're seeing prices rally, West Texas Intermediate punching higher and reaching levels not seen in a year. What are the drivers here?
Yeah, it's a very interesting situation. The other thing about oil that's also quite interesting with regards to that is the spreads. The spreads are now as low as $1.30. I mean, to put that in perspective, that's the highest it's been in 3 years. And at the start of the year, it was probably a spread of around about 24 to even as high as $30 US on the spread. So that's how close the matching's coming in. And it gets back to the fact that we're seeing really good numbers coming out of the US. We saw the Philly Fed manufacturing numbers well and truly ahead of expectations. And the other thing we know that's happening is that stockpiling is also falling like a stone, and that's all bringing that sort of price action well and truly to a head. It's making it rally well and truly up. It's around about 108.22 US cents with regards to the barrels now, and the highest we saw 2 years ago was 109. So it's probably not good news at the Bowser, but it is good news from those people that follow WTI very closely, and it probably will continue to push higher as we watch over the next couple of months with regards to Egypt sort of stabilising, but the fact that the US continues to strengthen.
Now, Evan, the SPY pointing us towards a positive start this morning. What's your outlook for our markets?
Yeah, we are also seeing it pointing higher. Look, at the moment, we've got a real psychological barrier going on the ASX. That 5,000 point mark, it doesn't actually have any sort of technical sort of area with regards to resistance or anything like that, but we just can't manage to punch through it. But we are looking like moving higher today, up around about 18 points to sort of 50.12, which is where we think it'll be up. So about 0.3 of 1%. It'll be a question of whether or not the cyclicals continue to drive this market. We see Santos releasing their production results today. Cyclical results are, calendar year results are expected to be around about 85 to 89 million barrels of oil equivalent for the year. So that means we probably want to see roughly between sort of 15 and 20 million barrels of oil equivalent coming out for the second quarter. We do know a lot about their Curtis Island project tie-up with BT. The fact they're still getting really good results out of the Cooper Basin and then over in Western Australia as well with the Winchester upgrade we saw yesterday. So Santos and that energy space, one to watch. And again, getting back to what we saw with the oil price and also natural gas popping up last night, it will be one to watch. Other one is BHP. BHP continues to move higher. It's now up 12.5% since its low in June. The ADR is suggesting it'll add another 22 cents this morning to 34.44. It's a price we haven't seen since about mid-April. So it is boding well for those cyclical stocks, and hopefully they'll be the one that see our market driving higher. But all eyes again also on Japan over the weekend. We are sort of looking forward to their general election. It does look like the Abe government could pick up 70 out of the possible 120 seats, which gives it a full majority pretty much across both houses now. It means they can really drive their current structure through, and Abe's been well and truly on the front foot with that. So that will also be something to watch tonight, the Japanese economy with their elections up and coming.
Absolutely. Abenomics to continue. Evan, thank you.
Thanks, Nigel.